This is Consumer Friend.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Consumer Friend podcast. We're very much hoping you're enjoying the current season of our podcast where we're interviewing industry experts for so many consumer-related issues. In today's pod, myself and Lou interviewed Anna Rowe, founder of the LoveSaid website. Now, we interviewed her back in the summer, and I'm afraid to say that we had a bit of a tech malfunction and one of the recordings went a bit wrong. So we're having to use the recording from the online conferencing software, which isn't the best. We've had to play with the sound to get it as good as we can, but please stick with it. It's such valuable information and it could help you avoid becoming a victim of romance fraud. As you'll hear, romance fraud is rife across all genders and adult age groups in the UK. Anyone can be a victim. Anyway, here is the interview with Anna. Hope you enjoy it. The romance scams are a growing problem. In 2023, 7,660 cases were reported in England and Wales, a significant rise from nearly 5,000 in 2019. Victims lost an average of £6,937, according to Lloyds Bank. And in 2023, men made up 52% of these cases, but women reported higher average losses, around £9,000 compared to men. It was just over £5,000. Those most at risk are aged 55 to 64, with cases in this group increasing by nearly 49% from the previous year. However, the highest losses are seen in individuals aged 65 to 74 who lose an average of £13,123 to romance fraud. Today, we are honoured to welcome Anna Rowe, a truly inspiring individual. After experiencing romance fraud herself, Anna turned her difficult experience into a mission to help others. She started Catch the Catfish and LoveSaid to raise awareness about online scams and support victims of romance fraud. Anna's journey is one of strength and determination. By sharing her story, she helps people recognise the size of fraud and find the support that they need to recover. Her work has made a real difference in many lives, showing that even in tough times we can find hope and make positive changes. She has gone from victim to gamekeeper to awareness raiser to industry expert and now industry legend. Hi, Anna. Thank you very much for coming onto our podcast.
What an intro. Thank you so much. It's very kind.
Right.
I never get introduced like that, just saying. I get little Louise. I
Little
get
LouBax. Hi, little Lou.
some sort of reference to my short stature. Never that sort of intro.
I'm gonna soundbite it and put that on the fresh.
Great to have you on, Anna. Thank you so much. I've obviously done a bit of research. In my day job, I work for the National Trading Standards Scams team. I sit on the Date Safe panel hosted by the City of London, the working group. And I was at your presentation in the last meeting, and it was fantastic talking about AI. I really, really loved it. Great stuff. You are now becoming the go-to person for information around romance fraud. But what I think I want to talk about first is how it all started for you. So I know you had a personal experience and you've been a victim of romance fraud. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, different kind of romance fraud for mine. So it was back in 2017. I'd had a successful online dating experience prior, so that had probably let my guard down a little bit. Met this guy, was groomed online for 3 months, and then met him in person. The malicious intent behind his fake identity was a sexual one. Not only that, I think bigger picture, looking back with all the victims now, he absolutely loved the power and control that he had over his victims through the deceit, his whole fake life and story. But coming out the other side of it, I ended up tracking him down into his real life. And then I couldn't understand how he'd done what he did to me, because I'm normally that really hot on the game with people that are not nice. I've always been that go-to person for someone that says, what do you think of them? And I'm always 100% on the money for their way, getting bad vibes from that one. And that should tell you how good he was at what he did, the way he got under my skin. But the way he remained under my skin for a long time, and I couldn't understand that bit. And I ended up seeing a counsellor, and it was her that directed me to go and research narcissistic and psychopathic traits. And that was my real healing point. And my eye-opener when I realised that this personality type used this particular type of script and emotional manipulation. And I recognised so much of other people's. And it was at that point when there was nowhere to match that with my experience of this fake identity that I set up Catch the Catfish. And I was very, very quickly overwhelmed with emails from people that had had similar experience to me, whether it was with someone with a fake identity or not. But then I started getting emails from people where the malicious intent was clearly financial.
Yes.
I'd not heard of those. I'd not heard of them. But with my new skills of reverse image searching that I'd literally just come across at that point back in 2017, and also recognizing when they were sending me their text messages, even though it was clear these were somewhere else in the world, that script that was being used absolutely paralleled what had been sent to me.
Mm-hmm.
That love, that grooming, that love bombing, that trauma bonding, that coercive controlling sort of behavior. And so I had immediate empathy and understanding of what these victims had been through to make them complicit and compliant in then sending money when they were asked to. I think that's why what I've done has been successful in that respect, that people don't feel judged at all and they feel understood and heard. It's not just them speaking, I get it.
They're not alone in that situation, are they? Because there's other people that have been involved in this, and that feeling of shame and that stigma of embarrassment, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If it's shared, then it's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, it gives permission, doesn't it? It gives permission for other people to share their stories. It's like when you would have me talk about that before, like when you have a baby and you go, I don't always like my kids, and you find another mum that goes, I don't always like mine, and you're like, that's right, I'm normal. It normalises it, doesn't it? And it makes it like it's permission to talk about it.
Yeah, and like we were just talking about the Annie Mac podcast, and so many victims really resonate when they hear me walk through in detail the sort of things that he did. And I particularly pull out certain things that he did in that because of how they coincide with the same stories and scenarios that are used with scammers. So making you feel so comfortable, wanting to isolate you in certain respects, and also the cancer story that is so often used. He used that. You know, he wasn't one of those overseas financial scammers, but he still used that, because when you're a person that has empathy for people, you're always going to feel for them. And that's a huge part of the manipulation that goes on. It was tragic, but I am that personality type that when I don't know about something, I will go and research it to depth.
With regards to the Annie Mac podcast, anyone who wants to listen to Anna's full story, the Annie Mac podcast changes. You're on there. It's about 45 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
So I was listening to that last week, and I was thinking, oh, okay, when do we get to the point where he's going to ask you for money? And we didn't get to that point, because I've obviously been in fraud for 6-7 years. And romance fraud to me is about the extortion of money. And that wasn't the case for you, which is when we've had completely different experiences, I guess, haven't we? It was whereas a revelation for you that they were actually after money as well.
Yeah. And I was constantly asked that. I mean, I had Falcon from the Met get in touch with me.
Yeah.
My story went public saying, well, did you ask this? And I was like, no. But what we need for people to understand is that it's the journey that victims are put through that is what brings us together under that banner of romance fraud. So mine didn't have money. There was a very different intent. I say mine, our, because there are 17 of us that I know of with that guy. You've got Cecilia Philhoy's experience where she met him in person, had a similar, that personal relationship with him, but he also asked for money. And then we've got the victims where it's completely online. They don't meet them in person, and the money or other is involved, whatever it is that particular group of scammers wants from the victims. It's not always money. Sometimes it's laundering, And
Celia was the Tinder swindler, wasn't that whole documentary on Netflix around that? Because again, the problem we have with this sort of scams, fraud, abuse is, whilst, as Adam said, you didn't pay any money. In a lot of these cases, we do see that people are asked for money, even if it is face-to-face, or even if it is, again, sort of a distance romance fraud. What happens is when people actually find out that they are a victim of a crime, you have issues around the fact that not only they lost money or something else, they've actually lost their boyfriend or their girlfriend. So it's huge. It's a double loss.
I say it's a triple trauma. And that's how I describe it to my victims, to help them understand why this feels so huge, because it does feel huge. And it's not just the loss of the most intense relationship that you've ever experienced, because they are crazy intense. So it's not only the loss of that leads this huge void in your life. It's also coming to terms with that the person that you were in love with and you thought was in love with you didn't actually exist at all. That was a character that they had created for you. And then you've got the loss of the money on the end of that. So for financial fraud victims, it is like a triple trauma that they have to work through. It's huge. And it is that emotional part of it that is the long-lasting part of it. You know, finances. A lot of people will say to me, the majority of my victims say, the money, it's awful to have lost it, but they say, I can make more money. It's that emotional impact that it has. And a lot of people will say, oh, it's trusting other people again. And actually, no, that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is trusting yourself. Because for me, as that person who always could tell a bad person from a good person, I now doubt that in myself, because when you've had someone so masterfully manipulate your morals and your ethics and everything about you, trusting yourself again is really difficult.
When we look at manipulation, what kind of tactics are these people doing to kind of coerce criminals? I mean, criminals. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I want to say men, but I don't. But that's obviously that. I'm assuming they're male. That these people that are committing these crimes. But what kind of tactics are they using?
There are Yahoo boys and girls that do this. The majority that I see in the group are boys, but there are absolutely girls that do it. And they will swap with the identity that they've created. So Dave Radband, who's an ex-military here, someone had fake profiles of him the other day and he got them on a video call and it was a girl. So that they will swap identities too when they create. So it definitely comes from both over there.
So the criminals are creating fake profiles. They use photos, obviously not of themselves. That would be silly. So they're taking photos from.
It's quite specific usually. If we look at the bigger scenarios used, military pictures, doctors and pilots are also used under the banner of military, UN. And then you've got offshore workers. So basically anyone that's got photographs in their real life of wearing a hard hat or a bright orange suit, they get used as offshore workers. They get used as engineers, architects, that kind of thing. So basically those scenarios that can take anyone away to a location, because that gives the opportunity for there being a problem somewhere down the line. If they're after money with the banking, for example. But we've got other things coming out now, haven't we? Like the investment fraud, the disgustingly named pig butchering that I hate.
We're trying to get that changed.
Hybrid. Yeah, I know. We've been talking over things we could call it. And there's different ideas of thought on, well, it's known now, but I'd still rather change it. I think it's
romance investment.
I'd like to talk to the person that gave you that name and go, why?
Well, it was literally translated from what the criminals called it, wasn't it? It's a translation of the Chinese term for that. That's what the criminals named it, which makes me even more think we shouldn't be using it. It's horrible.
So they'll claim to be working overseas, World Health Organization, Greenpeace, military, that kind of thing. That also gives them that excuse to have sporadic communication. So, sorry, I haven't been in touch for a couple of days. The internet was down on the rig or something along those lines.
Well, it's an excuse for them to say, I haven't got access to my bank. Can you send me some funds to top up my Wi-Fi and stuff like that? It's that's quite a common one that they use with the military and with the offshore workers. But to get a victim into that place obviously depends on the victim. People that suffer with low self-esteem, particularly, or low self-worth, are extremely susceptible to this as well. because the love bombing that goes on can make you feel so wanted and needed by a person that it's quite overwhelming in a wonderful way, as well as, then turning into this really emotional roller coaster when the trauma bonding comes in. So you've had all that really intense relationship bombarded around you, and then they might disappear for a couple of days, and it makes you panic. What on earth? My immediate fallback when mine did it was, what have I done? What have I done that he doesn't want to suddenly...
But that's natural, Anna. Like, as well, you go like people that are susceptible to low self-esteem or low self-worth. Who isn't at some point? Like, again, situational vulnerability. Who isn't susceptible to that? And also, our natural predisposition is to attend to the negative. So, and 99% of the things that we think about are about ourselves. So when somebody moves away for no reason, we do go to, what have I done? Because we attend to the negative rather than, and it's only then if you can rationalise it and not be trapped. And the way that these crims are so clever, you don't get time to rationalise it, because then they're back and they love bomb you. So then you're just relieved that they're back.
So can we just talk about what can we just talk about what love bombing is?
What I do to you every day,
I get really annoyed when you get people that have never experienced it that say they send you a few flirty messages and tell you that they love you quickly, and I'm seething when I read that kind of stuff, because it is the most intense, overwhelming experience that you can go through. They're on you 24/7 with messages. They are possessive over you. They make you feel like the most important person in their world. They can't be without you. You are made to feel... I've never, ever felt in my life so wanted or needed by somebody with with how he affected me in that way. So when you... And within all that, and with all the grooming, and they're very good at drawing information out, they have created that fairy tale soulmate, romantic relationship that so many people dream of. At last, it's happened. It's my time, to have the good stuff kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then that trauma bonding sort of starts, and you get where they will pull away and then come back, and you get that horrible emotional roller coaster, that panic.
Anna, just from a point of view, so if you talk about it, so just to reiterate, so love bombing involves showering someone with flattery and attention. They become deeply attached, right? Which is where Anna's talking about trauma bonding, right? So if you think of your trauma bond, so say you've just had a relationship breakup, your trauma bond is a hole, right? This other person comes to you with a matching hole, right? So it's like that. So then what the trauma bond? You plug each other's hole in a non-rude way. I'm going to make like this. I didn't mean that. It's just... And you're like, this is meant to be. We're meant, and the way that the words that are used and the love bombing that's used, it's like, we are meant to be. This is like,
I've had things before.
It's like soulmates and all of that stuff, right? And what that does is sometimes when two people meet who had a similar experience, your traumas can mend. You can, right? Not very often, may I add, especially when in this situation. What that then does, it just deepens it. It causes more damage. It makes the hole bigger, because they are playing on all of your insecurities to make you more attached to them, because they sniff out your vulnerability.
Yeah. And he absolutely did. When I said to him, what makes you angry? He said to me, poor communication and mind games. And that for me was my instant, oh my God, he's been hurt too. He's not going to do it to me.
Yeah.
And, it was everything. And also, I don't make romantic connections with people very often. I haven't in my life. I'm not those, we see the Americans who go date after date after date, and they're happy to have those I just can't do that. And so when I have an emotional connection with someone in a romantic sense, I fall very deep and I fall very quick, which is the classic symptom of bloody love bombing. And what another, so for me, not realizing that at that point, when somebody did that back to me, because he got there first, he was so clever. He was the one that put his emotions there. I've never felt like this before. I've never had this. I can't believe how lucky we are to have found each other and all this stuff. It's everything you want to hear. It's like, I can't believe it. I'm not having to keep quiet about how I feel because I'm going to scare someone off and, all this. And it's really quite crazy. It really is. But he very much the fact that he'd got out of me. He knew I needed to be needed. I loved helping people, hence probably why I do what I do now. But I need to be needed. It's who I am as a person.
I think we can all relate to the fact that it's nice to be wanted, isn't it? It's nice to be needed by people. Absolutely. So once these criminals have got their trust, they've now got their victim hooked.
Yeah.
Then they start asking for money. But does it start small and then get big, or do they just go all in and just try and extort as much as they can?
Often they do. They'll do little tests of asking for things. If the victim says no, that's another time with a lot of the victims that I've had that they then disappear again. And then they will come back. And because that victim is then in fear of losing that bloody incredible relationship that they purposefully created, when the ask comes again, the victim is then much more compliant about not risking them disappearing again. It's absolutely vile. But they're also just really, really clever the way that they ask for things. When you see it a lot, you can see the pattern so clearly, but you would never know when it's happening that it's happening like that for a reason. And they're so sophisticated, especially with the technology that's there now. The whole bank account thing is built very cleverly into the story. So they'll be talking a lot of the time. I get this so much, whatever scenario is being used. They will be talking about how busy they are. The victim has become the only person that they can trust, blah, 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 blah. Then they're making them feel even more important. I've got these invoices that need paying. Do you think you could log into my bank for me while I'm at work today because I just don't have time, and make a transfer for me? So they've created a fake website that's like a cloned bank website. They give them the login details. They give them the password. The victim goes in. They can see the name they've been told. They can see a picture of the person that they're speaking to. They can see a huge bank balance. They can go in and make a transfer. They come out, they message the person to say, I've done it for you. And they go, oh my God, yeah, look, I've just received this notification from the bank to say that there's been a suspicious login into my bank account. And they send the fake notification. Nothing more said. Thanks for doing that, blah, 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 blah. Bit more time passes. Then something bad happens. I've got this problem. I really don't want to ask, but I need to ask for help. We've run out of materials or something's broken. I need to get this contract finished or I'm going to lose everything and I'm not going to be able to come back. I've managed with all my other business partners to get 90% of the money that I need, but I just need this last 10%. Do you think you can help me? You've seen my bank account. You know I'm good for it. But do you think you can help lend the money? I've tried to get into my bank again today to transfer some more of the money, but it's locked me out because of what we did. So now the victim not only is in this absolute panic, they also feel some guilt because they're the person that locked the bank account. And he's saying, when I get home, I've got to get this finished. I can get home. I can go into the bank, get it all sorted out and send you the money. Do you think you can help? And they've got this rush of time constraint, emotion and desperation.
The hot state.
Yeah. And they've also then got either, because they've built this whole cast around them. Cecilia uses a phrase that is so relevant and powerful, and it's immersive theatre, because that's exactly what happens. People think it's just one-on-one with a victim and a scammer.
It's proper organised crime.
Such organised crime. And there is this huge cast that's been created, friends, colleagues, a lawyer, a child, all messaging this victim. And when the pressure needs to be put on, they will all be messaging the victim to try and scramble them about what's going on.
It's about putting people into a state of confusion so they don't know, the gaslighting. And I know these are all like cliche words, but it's about pushing them, not just the hot state ads, but this state where you're pushing people into such a state of confusion. They don't know what way is up or what way is down, all of these different stuff coming in. And then what happens is the main perpetrator will rescue you from your confusion, which just increases that reliance on that person. Because they will confuse, and then they'll switch into like full rescuer, rescue you from your confusion, provide you with clarity, which will give you instant relief, which will just make you lean into it more. It's the whole thing is so clever. It's so clever. So just
take a step back. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Let's just take a breather.
Let me help you work it out. Let's map it out together. Let's plan together. Let's work out a solution together when they're the one that's caused the problem. So I just think, just from our perspective, one of the things we said like at the beginning is this blame and the shame stuff. So we really need to be careful about the language we use. I mean, we work with Anna from the scam scene perspective, and Anna and I are doing some work on hopefully a book around how, and one of the most important things around this is language. If you do come across somebody that has been a victim of romance fraud or romance scams or in-person romance scams or any of these things, it's really careful not to be like, why did you fall for that? Because we wouldn't say that about other things. Why would you fall for why would you fall for a burglary? Or why would you be so stupid? Or why did you think he would find you attractive? Or why do you think she would find you attractive?
I hate that.
Well, it's so shamey, isn't it? Because then people it will just erode people's self-worth even further, which then puts them into more of a victim place, which means essentially they're more susceptible to become a victim of other crime as well. And like you say, it's the mental health effects. So we need to deal with this with as much empathy or sympathy as we possibly can.
And understanding that, I say this over and over, and in the training we do as well for the police, you've got to understand and remember that every single human being is a unique human being made up of a whole set on a spectrum of different education, cultural backgrounds, past life experiences, not to mention tech ability or whatever, around that. Speaking a different language, English not being your primary language. So everybody has got to respect the fact that every single victim will react differently in the scam and afterwards. And there is no one glove fits all for that. And it's what we talked about at the House of Commons, Lou, wasn't it? That, victim support and all the other organisations that are out there are absolutely fantastic. But for romance fraud in particularly, it's really important we have a dedicated support group, because it's a very, very not just unique fraud in that respect, but it also needs long-term support. So I've got victims that still come back to me a couple of years later, normally for a good reason now, which is really brilliant, where they've actually found someone in real life and they're happy. And I love getting those stories more than anything. But also, they're not worried about coming back to me when anything concerns them. And then we talk it through together. So there's a constant open door, policy for people just to come when they want.
So with Catfish and LoveSaid websites, we'll put links in the show notes. That is around awareness raising and talking to people about the fact that this does exist. This is out there, and awareness raising is so important, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Also, trying to kick law enforcement into doing more about it. That's the other thing from a sort of a pressure point, is to push. Actually, we societally and law enforcement wise, we need to take this more seriously, and there needs to be more sanctions that come into play when we talk about that. So, and also, if you're talking about sanctions and prosecuting or potentially investigating, then victims get better victim support as well. So that drives up that consistent victim support.
Yeah, absolutely. So Catch the Catfish has been going for 7 years now, and it is in itself a whole resource basically, but it's more victim based and educational based in that respect. LoveSaid has moved into, although we haven't got it yet funding wise, we want to build a big community platform for victims away from social media, because they can shut you down whenever they fancy it for no reason at all. We want a specific place of our own for that. But also I do online support groups every other week. It was only going to be once a month, but they love it so much that we do an hour every other week, which is lovely. I've also got a little Facebook group for people that only want to communicate that way as support. We've also got, I've also got, some people just prefer emails, some people prefer a phone call. Again, everyone's different and they prefer a different range of communication and support. So I have as much available as I can in that respect to make it as comfortable for people as they need.
And you also go out and you do talks to law enforcement across the country, try and tell them about the importance of this. And to be fair to them, they have started to listen. I mean, I can think of certainly a few police officers that I've spoken to who are really, really keen to help their victims.
It's amazing. You know, I'm in such a privileged position with what I do now. And the fact that they respect that what comes from victims is actually really valuable. Yeah. Victims are a huge undervalued resource. They really are. But not only that, I can do things that the police can't. So I can collect information and pass new trends on from both sides, whether it's from the scammer groups or from the amount of victims that I personally speak to. They will tell me a lot more than they will a police officer. So I can gather a lot more intel and evidence, if you like, in that respect.
It's like you're experts, but like we talk about, it's experts by experience.
So how is artificial intelligence changing the landscape of romance fraud?
It's making it a lot more sophisticated in every respect. So the video calls that they used to make using a saved video are now being used with deepfake technology. We have got voice cloning, which is huge across the fraud world, being used to make voice notes using, you know, the person whose voice they've stolen. We've got things like ChatGPT, which is being used to refine those formats that they had been using. And it does remember past conversation. We tested it out when I did with the students. So it does remember the past conversation and brings it into context in the future. And we've also got picture manipulation, where they can take either a video or a picture, use the clone voice, and then make that picture say things that they want. That has been the biggest evolving thing that I've seen.
It makes it all so real, doesn't it? It makes it all, even before artificial intelligence, people see what they want to see. They want to believe that picture is real, so therefore they won't investigate it or interrogate that picture for any kind of signs of tampering. And now we've got artificial intelligence, which is making everything so perfect in terms of the fakery that's around it, that now you can't, even if you wanted to see the fake, you couldn't see it.
Yeah. So the sextortion is not only a standalone thing, it's used very much in romance fraud as well. And the AI, there are apps available to undress an image. So they don't even have to have sent intimate images.
Wow.
They put it through the app and it undresses to create the intimate image. And then they blackmail with that. So we've got that on top of everything else. Yeah.
But hey, maybe there's a chance of using artificial intelligence to help catch these criminals and disrupt their processes. So maybe there are some positives there.
I hope so. I really hope we need it.
Anna, thank you very much. That has been absolutely amazing. I just kind of want to finish up on what would you say to someone who is currently going through or is suspecting that their supposed partner is a romance fraudster or someone who has been a victim of romance fraud? What would be your advice?
I would say don't feel ashamed in any way. You're definitely not alone. This is unfortunately something that's happening on a huge scale across the globe, not even just in our country. Come talk through, if you don't want to come and talk to an organisation like ours, open up and talk to a friend or a family member, get them to put a fresh set of eyes on what's been sent to you, what's going on. Let them see from an outside perspective. It's obviously easier from someone on the outside to look through. Do those reverse image searches, but don't take it as gospel if they don't show up that that's not a scammer, because sometimes now they're getting really crafty with the images that they use. So they're using ones that aren't showing up, or they manipulate them just enough with AI so that they don't show up on the search, which is also really, really clever. But never feel ashamed about it. Come and talk to people, and that's going to be our best defense over it.
You're not alone. That's the other thing, isn't it? These things tend to, because as well, just the criminals isolate you. So you're already isolated, but it's really important, like you say, that you talk to somebody because you're not alone in it. You don't need to deal with it in isolation.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Anna, thank you very much. That's been absolutely fantastic. We will obviously put the links to LoveSaid and Catch the Catfish in the show notes, and also the link to the Annie Mac podcast for your full story. I'm sure we'll put some other resources in there as well once I think of them. But Anna, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me and for helping to raise awareness.
This is Consumer Friend.